When the Bush administration came into office in January 2001, the North Korean program for the production of plutonium was frozen. It had been shut down solidly by the 1994 Agreed Framework Agreement. The North Korean missile program had ended its tests. The North Korea voluntarily declared a moratorium on its missile tests in 1998, and that was still in place. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright had just returned from Pyongyang, where she had been the most senior U.S. official ever to visit that country. And up until the last minute of the Clinton administration, there was talk that President Clinton might still consider a trip to Pyongyang, and they were trying to work out the details of that trip. In the end, President Clinton decided he had to concentrate on the Middle East negotiations and could not go to North Korea. But we were inches away from a deal that would finally end North Korea's nuclear program and its missile program. This was the agenda that the Bush administration inherited. If Secretary of State Colin Powell had been allowed to do what he wanted to do at that point, I believe we would not have a North Korean nuclear or missile program to worry about today. To her credit, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, when she became secretary in 2005, recognized that the strategy towards North Korea was failing. She understood this was not working, the problem was getting worse. She then did three very clever things. First, she recognized the failure. Second, she changed the policy to start direct negotiations with the North Koreans, first up at the United Nations and then on the outside, on the periphery of multilateral meetings where both the North Koreans and the United States were present. And third, she denied that there was any change in policy. She said this was a continuation of the President's policy, that this was a natural development, and there was no change in course. Thus, she kept the President on board. She kept his confidence in her alive and well. The key for the negotiations are going to be, one, making sure they still continue in the six-party framework, but two, that our direct negotiations with the North Koreans continue. As you know, the key to getting the North Koreans back to the bargaining table was that 7-hour session held in Beijing with China, North Korea, and the U.S. My understanding is that a full 70 minutes of those meetings were direct bilateral talks between the United States and North Korea. That is, the Chinese brought both sides in, set the table, and left the room for some 70 minutes, maybe as much as 90 minutes, to allow the North Koreans and the U.S. to talk directly. And that was the key. That was what North Korea needed to be able to save face and come back to the talks.